Welcome to Live with Miami's Community News, South Florida's #1 source for local stories. I'm Michael Miller, bringing people together and sharing the voices, events, and connections that shape our community.
Cheers, guys.
That'd be true.
I'm all in to be the Miami-Dade County mayor.
That event. Tell everybody about it. What's next? What do we have to do?
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Michael Miller. Our guest today is Cristina Blanco, is the Executive Director of Pinecrest Gardens. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Cristina. All right.
Thank you for having me today.
My pleasure. Pinecrest Gardens is an extraordinary place in the lives of so many people in Miami-Dade County, and particularly people on the South End, and particularly for the people in Pinecrest. It's this gem that's over there. Let's do a very short history first before we get on to in its current status. How was the Pinecrest Gardens started, and what was it before?
Interesting. So Pinecrest Gardens actually started in the 1930s as Parrot Jungle. It was the original site of what you know today as Jungle Island. It was Parrot Jungle. A husband and wife named Franz and Louise Scher purchased a property with the idea and the vision to open up a attraction, one of the first South Florida attractions, and their main attraction would be a collection of birds, eventually to expand to other things, crocodiles, tortoises, and etc.
And so when they first opened, when did they first open?
1936.
And I remember going there years ago and seeing some of those pictorial history events that were there. Really pretty nifty. There's a famous cockatoo that's down there, all right? At least a picture of it that's there with Sir Winston Churchill.
Correct. Sorry for interrupting you, but there's actually two. A lot of people don't know. Everybody's familiar with Pinky, the cockatoo, which is actually embedded in our terrazzo floor at the main entrance. And there are historical pictures and interpretive signs that include that. But the famous bird that kissed Winston Churchill's name is Butch.
And Butch was also a cockatoo.
Also a cockatoo.
For folks, cockatoos are typically, there's several different species. One is all white, there's some white with some yellow, some white with orange, and then there's a whole other groups of cockatoos, but the famous ones are the white ones.
Correct.
And so the Parrot Jungle moved out. When was that approximately?
The property sold in 1998, 99. And actually, at that time, it sold to the village of Pinecrest. Prior to that, there was a gentleman named Bern Levine who purchased a property in the late 80s.
And it was an interesting thing that happened. The Parrot Jungle wanted to expand its dining down there, and the neighbors were sort of against it. And that was actually, from what I understand, the genesis for the formation of a city, so that they could be more in charge of that property that was there. So Bern Levine and his friends purchased it, and they moved out. And they moved over to Jungle Island, where it was renamed Jungle Island over there.
That's right.
So when did the Pinecrest say, we're going to make this into beautiful gardens, and we're going to make it a place where the community can come and relax and look at the things that were there?
Well, it would have been around 1999 to 2002. So there was a 2-year process when the village of Pinecrest gathered together with several residents who were private donors. They also wrote an application grant to the Florida Communities Trust in Tallahassee. And in order to actually acquire the land and own it full right, they needed additional funds. And the FCT has different pockets of funds that allows entities like the Village of Pinecrest to purchase the land with the idea that they're going to be stewards of the land and convert it into a public space that can be programmed.
So here we are. Now, the Pinecrest Gardens has been in full bloom for many, many, many years. Congratulations on your position.
Thank you.
There. And it's certainly one of curiosity that people want to go there and to feel good and to have some history, because when you understand the history, you're in this presence of 100 years of that property being there, entertaining people.
We're just shy of 100 years. That's right, Nate.
I know. It's just.
So what's interesting about that particular remark that you made is we have a multi-generational visitorship here at the gardens, because it's not just myself and you who remember, but the grandparents or great-grandparents grew up coming to the gardens to admire the birds. But also there was an active cafeteria that did Sunday brunches, and they did different programming where they showcased their animals in something at that time called the Bird Bowl. And then eventually they opened what we call today the Banyan Bowl, which is a geodesic, fully covered dome. And for about 5 years, at the onset of Pinecrest Gardens acquiring the property, because they needed to clear it and prepare it, it was mostly a passive park. It wouldn't be until 2002 where they decided to program it and bring in community festivals, music, visual arts, all because Pinecrest itself doesn't have a downtown strip. That community center area, known as Pinecrest Gardens, became that forum, that gathering place for the community. So it's super exciting to be part of the programming right now.
And before we get on the next thing, we'd like Emily to take a shot of it. Emily's producing the show, and she's going to come on the screen there in a second. And Emily's a FIU graduate. Oh, there she is. Say hi. Where is she? Right there. So thank you, Emily, for producing the show. Let's talk about the Jazz and Tropical Night series.
I'm so glad you asked. So our Jazz and Tropical Night series, and now recently added the Sound Sessions, is our music series. We offer 6 jazz concerts between October and April each year, and we recently added a Tropical Night series, which allows us to incorporate other types of music from salsa to Caribbean music. That we run from about December to March, and then our Sound Sessions are pop-up music experiences that don't fall either into jazz or Caribbean and Latin music.
And where within the Pinecrest Gardens is this music played?
So the Banyan Bowl is this fully covered amphitheater that's right in the heart of the gardens, right next to the banyan trees, the famous banyan trees that you see the canopy of. From aerial shots, but from the road, we host there about 540 visitors who can participate for any concert.
Wow, that's a nice crowd.
It really is. It's intimate. It's stadium seating, so every seat in the house is wonderful. And our concert artists range from, multi-Grammy award-winning artists to Thelonious Monk award winners. So we're really excited to present them here to the community. And
I know we're going to be putting your website up on there. If people want to find out lots about the gardens besides tuning in today, they can go on the website, and all the events are up that you have coming up.
Yes, we have a pretty active calendar that runs all the way through next October 2026. There's monthly programs when it comes to the jazz concerts, but there are also many other types of programs, including art exhibitions, adult workshops, children's classes, garden tours, even dance concerts.
When you study who goes there, I mean, obviously some people in Pinecrest, but tell us about the reach that the gardens have.
So we really reach all of Miami-Dade County. About 38 to 40% are right there. Pinecrest and the budding areas, which are like Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay, Coral Gables, South Miami, Kendall. But essentially all zip codes are represented, including people who commute from Naples, Palm Beach, Monroe County.
When they show up, are they going for a specific event that's there, or are they going for a casual walkthrough?
That's a good question. So we have a combination. A lot of outside visitors, meaning outside of even Miami-Dade County, come for the pleasure of coming to the gardens to see the garden. Right? These are people who travel that are accustomed to going to botanical gardens, museums, etc., to go experience that area. But we also have regular repeat visitors who are either our members or right from the immediate area that are looking for a safe, fun, not a difficult place to come and park to, but they come with their kids, the grandparents. Like today, we have already cleared in the first couple hours about 500 visitors. You see the strollers, you see grandma, grandpa, the parents, all enjoying the pathways, the playground, the splash area.
So here we have people that are speeding down 57th Avenue, but don't speed, or down US 1 to get there, and they pull in the parking lot, covered with the trees that are there. And you pull in, and all of a sudden things start to slow down, and they park their car, and they're going. And when they get into the park there, the walk changes. The gait of the people just slows down so they can look and really feel what it's like to be there. Can you tell us some of the artists that are going to be there between now and March?
Great. So in December coming up, we have an artist named Chino Nunez. He's going to do something called a Parranda Navideña, which is a Puerto Rican-style holiday celebration. That takes place as the first show for Tropical Nights during our Nights of Lights series. In January, for our jazz, we have Arturo Farid coming to join us with more of an Afro-Cuban jazz style, followed by Alfredo Rodriguez and Friends, who is an amazing up-and-coming Grammy Award-nominated pianist.
You don't even have to look at your notes to know
I don't.
This is wonderful.
Well, because we get to curate, right? We work about a year and a half in advance curating the next season, and it's amazing to audition and meet these artists either by Zoom, talk with them a little bit about their program content, what's coming new down the pike. So I get really excited even before the season comes. So we have a big focus this year, in addition to Ashley Pizzotti, who's a local artist who now is living in New York and performing at the Lincoln Center with her quartet. She's doing a Valentine's Day concert. We have Ben Rosenblum, who's doing something called the Nebula Project, and he's really interesting because he does this fusion jazz where he includes folk music from different cultures into his jazz. And then we round out the jazz series with another local band orchestra, called New Deco Ensemble. We had many requests from the community to bring them into our neighborhood. They perform at the Arsht and Citadel and many other locations. We're really excited to have this 22-piece orchestra closing out the season. And then to close Tropical Nights, we have Willie Chirino and his 5 daughters, who are all musicians, doing a special acoustic program to close our Tropical Night series. So we're super excited to this year focus a lot on local artists in addition to some that we bring from afar.
So the venue that you have there, how does the size of that venue compare to some of these places that you're mentioning?
So I'm so glad you asked that, because we really are small and intimate, because we're 500 seats. Westchester, imagine, it's 250. You have the Moss Center that's 1,200 and so forth. These are the larger theaters. So when you come, you're going to feel enveloped by our theater. It's acoustically sound because it has a metal roof. And we have a professional technical team that makes it special. But in terms of size, we are truly, I think, a unique size here. I don't think that there's many other venues that size. Even the Seminole Theater is under 300 seats.
So how fortunate do you feel when you're able to book some of these people?
I would say, I want to say the feeling is mutual. They've heard through the grapevine what a unique place we are and how we take care of our artists. But when we get some of these artists, we feel not only delighted because of the opportunity for the community, but for the opportunity for us to showcase another type of artist, because we're really trying to evolve from maybe playing the straight ahead the 1940s, 50s, 60s to really kind of diversify jazz, diversify music we bring in here. So we get really excited.
So tell me about Sneaker Stories. What is that?
Fantastic. So this is an interesting partnership. The partnership the conversation started like 2 years ago. We went and took a field trip, our staff, to the Museum of Graffiti in Wynwood. We were really exploring the idea of bringing urban art into a public botanical display setting. And out of that came the idea to bring a traveling exhibition that they were just curating called Sneaker Stories. And Sneaker Stories is really an interesting journey documented of graffiti artists who came from painting on the subways and walls to transition into professional art galleries where they did 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional work, and eventually took their art to footwear. And we're displaying about 11 different artists. Several of them are here local. And we have paintings. We have the large Futura sculptures. We have about 37 sneakers on display. Super special because if you can imagine, go back to the 80s, that culture, that graffiti culture transitioned into apparel and footwear, but brought together by a hip hop culture. Musicians were defining their identities by their footwear. And so there's the birth of a whole nother transition of artists who are making it to what we wear or to other objects that we use. So that story I thought would be interesting, not only to appeal to some younger audiences, but also maybe to help people rethink that graffiti is not just about painting on subways and walls, but rather they monetize their artwork to create a whole nother line of business for themselves.
And we understand the connection between stuff that you put on your walls, paintings and photographs.
Yes.
And tattoo artists.
That's right.
There was an event out at the Youth Fair property, a tattoo artist who we were fortunate to interview. It was 85% tattoos, the body. Every type of tattoo and device you could have on there. And we said to him, there are people like you and there are people like me. I'm going to look past that, get to who you are. And when he told me that he rented to artists 450 booths, people around the world were going there. And then he said something interesting. He said, and collectors from around the world. I said, what is a collector? He said, those are people that go in and say, this is my canvas. I want you, the artist, to put your painting, your drawing, your sneakers on my hand.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And extraordinary when you get around artists, no matter what type of artist it is, to see how their brains work. So when you look at these tennis shoes, I call them tennis shoes, or these sneakers, and you see some of their work, how extraordinary is that for you when you look at these artists and say, look what these folks did?
I find it colorful. I found the artwork on the sneakers diverse, somewhat statements, some humor. Something that I didn't know about the graffiti artists until I really leaned into this topic was that in addition to having their mark, let's say their own mark, like, or their own tag, their own style, they also work with crews. So you'll see numbers or acronyms that represent the crews that they work with to get all of this work accomplished. So that was super. That means they're organized, they're strategic, they have time management, they're creative with their tools. And by the way that they use tools, I don't know if you've been to Windward Walls where you try to do one of those graffiti activations. It takes tremendous skill to make a proper letter A with a spray paint can.
When a non-artist looks at graffiti and they think it's just graffiti to ruin a building, it's not. It's way past that.
It really
There's
is.
so many messages in there. Most of us don't understand it. When you look at it, how creative that is. And some, I'm sure, it started off getting their hands spanked by their or more by their family. Stop doing that to the wall. So let's, if we go back to the Pinecrest Gardens, you have Nights of the Lights, which is something that you do each year, if I remember right.
We do. We have a holiday light festival. This year it's taking place between December 5th and December 28th. It's the evenings of Thursday through Sunday, typically during the month. And every night we have a beautiful light display with this amazing landscape feature. But then we also have nightly activations and concerts. So we've curated a series of concerts ranging from mariachis to jazzy holiday to the baranda I mentioned earlier. Even excerpts from the Nutcracker, a weekend dedicated to the Grinch. So if you can,
how much do you love this? Look at that.
So I have an arts background, I'll tell you that. And I have a community building background and a museum background and marketing, you name it. But I have not gotten so much like enjoyment of really participating in programming for the community like I am right now. So if I'm glowing, it's because it's a very special place.
And how long have you been doing this?
So in this particular role, I joined September 2022.
What makes you so happy doing this?
Really, it's cultural, it's artistic. There's a responsibility and obligation to be a steward of the landscape. It achieved in 2011 a historic designation. So you're protecting a historic property. You're taking that property and you're fulfilling your mission for Florida Communities Trust to program it and make it educational, cultural. I can't say enough. And then meeting these artists, bringing them to the audiences, and they're just delighted and they're smiling, and it's multi-generational. It just brings a lot of joy into people's lives.
How did you wind up getting into this arena?
So believe it or not, I started as a ballet dancer. I've had three
Another
careers.
artist.
Yes, so I've always say my first career is arts. And I grew up here. I mean, if you can imagine, speed forward, I'm actually a graduate of New World School of the Arts High School. And at that particular instance, I had an amazing man named Danny Lewis, who was my dean at that time. And he gave me a chance to be an arts administrator before I even knew what arts administration was. So at that time, I kind of already developed my passion and so forth. I went and I studied performance arts degree, but I also went to get an arts management degree. And speed forward, I used those tools in museums, professional theaters, believe it or not, in banking. I spent some time in banking at United Way. And then I'm here.
Do you know any of the folks from the Miami Book Fair?
I do.
Tell me more.
Okay, so were you asking from a book writer perspective or Oh Miami? So I would love to talk a little bit about Oh Miami. I personally like to write poems. And I love to listen to authors talk, specifically biographies, historical, political, if those are available, sometimes spy. But I am a patron and supporter of the book fair every year. And most recently in the years, paying attention and watching Oh Miami, we actually may be collaborating with them in the spring to do a special programming for the community called Poetry in Pajamas on Friday, April 3rd.
Right before that, get your friends from over there and come here.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
You're welcome
glad to do that.
So let's talk about the Art and Design Fair that's in January. That's the end of January. It seems like it's far away, but it's really not.
It's not. Actually, we have been for about 21 years producing a 2-day art fair that takes place throughout the gardens. And in the last year, we've actually almost doubled the number of artists. So we're close to like 82 artists that are featured both around the gardens and in our main meadow area and another area called the Colonnade. So we featured mixed media art, about 7 different types of mediums, and it's a juried art show with prizes and recognition for the artists. But most importantly, it's an opportunity for the immediate surrounding communities to have a place to come and visit artists, purchase art. We also have what's called a design market with collectible art that's curated by actual fine artists that make a living from that as well. So we do music concerts. We've made it a full experience. There's things to eat, things to see, and of course, the beautiful gardens.
Besides the work that you do, how do you demonstrate your creativity?
In a few different levels. That's a great question. I think program curation is probably the number one way. Collaborating with artists and maybe coming up with an idea of what to program. For instance, with the Tropical Night series, this year we experimented with doing 3 nights. We were the pre-centennial concert for Celia Cruz, and I was able to, through my partnerships and to say creativity, also curate an exhibition honoring Celia Cruz, but not in its normal form. We focused on the years that made her famous, 1950 to 1965. So I was able to meet a variety of local collectors that had items of hers, including the Celia Cruz Foundation and Omar Badillo, Eloy Cepero, you can name a few. And we were able to collect things, enough pieces to not just put photos on walls, but actually put memorabilia on display. So I get a lot of outlets for creativity here, whether it's that, also marketing, communications, and taking what an idea is for a program and then flipping it to how a consumer might receive that information.
So, Cristina, you were a ballet dancer for how long?
I was. Actually, I danced up until 2018 and taught here locally, the young ones. And then it became too much between kids, dancing, and work.
Where did you dance?
Do you remember the dance center, Karen Finan?
No.
Okay. Well, I participated in something called the Royal Academy of Dance. It was very much a classical judicated program. And that was extremely rewarding because I had to learn about the different methods of dance, from Italian style, Russian, English, to United States.
So there you were dancing in front of crowds.
Yes.
What was that like for you?
That's awesome. I actually prefer dancing in front of crowds than actually talking in front of them. But I've learned that I have to do that in my current role.
So tell me about you potentially doing something like that, where you're on stage rather than behind the camera, in front of the camera.
Well, I think probably the joy or the satisfaction I get out of that is I know that when you sit in a communal experience like the arts, there is something that you receive and you experience together that leaves you feeling happier, connected, and ultimately like almost like rejuvenated, right? You can go listen to a concert or see a ballet or listen to a play reading, which is very literary, and walk away and feeling like something, you just had something good injected into you, and then it just overflows. I see it happen show after show, event by event.
You mentioned about at Pinecrest Gardens that you're sort of in this envelope and it sort of wraps around you. Tell us about why you use that phrase.
So whether you're walking the gardens, which were designed very carefully by Franz Scher, the pathways are small and they wind around. And around you, you have the trees and you have very mature trees. You can also feel the climate change and you can hear the water in the stream because we have different waterways that connect to the Snapper Creek. And just whether you're walking like I said, these pathways, or you're sitting in our theater or one of our indoor spaces, the whole place is much more intimate. It's not a huge convention center. It's not a huge theater like the Arch, which I love the Arch, but it's a whole different feeling. So you really feel like you're being hugged. It's accessible. It's intimate. It's not exaggerated. It's a very
so other than being there,
feeling.
where else in your activities do you have that same sort of feeling?
I think we are very creative in terms of how we leverage the space when we do events. The meadow, which is wrapped around by a dry garden. We have a very much a beautiful set of banyan trees, an African tree, and then another walkway where there used to be birds. So that's another area. Our playground is another little cozy area It's almost like a piece of art, but it's an ADA-friendly playground with a mini zoo and little pods you can walk in and interact with a cow or a donkey. So everything has that little bit of a personal, intimate feel.
Tell me about the mini zoo.
Oh, good.
Funny you should ask.
Yeah. So in 2022, December, we opened an upper garden. Actually, it was closed for several years. And if you grew up taking your kids or remember going, there was a petting zoo, there was a butterfly zoo, and a playground that maybe had already kind of outlived its time. Now it's this little explosion of colors. We have a huge lizard right in the middle of it, and safe grounds. The mini zoo has a mini cow called Chip. We have 2 donkeys. We have 1 miniature cow. Sorry, not a cow, but a pig named Rusty. We have 5 chickens, 4 rabbits, and about 4 Nigerian miniature dwarf goats. It's a lot of fun. Kids are so happy that it's so worth it. So worth the visit. It's a lot of fun. That's a whole nother area that's not arts related, but it looks like a piece of art showcasing animals.
It's all sort of together. When you pull into that parking lot, as I mentioned earlier, and the trees are there, it's like going into this other world. And people, when they go there, typically, how long do people stay in that other world?
I would say anywhere between 90 minutes to 2.5 hours. Some people make it a destination where when they have kids that are just the right age where they can extend to 4 hours. I noticed they'll walk the gardens, they'll go play, there's a free open space to run, and then they end with a splash area. And that's a guaranteed nap afterwards.
Okay. So we have here a couple of brochures. Why don't you tell us about what's here? This is the fall and winter. So tell us about some things that are available there. And people, when they go to the gardens, they can get copies of these to take with them, as well as they can go on the website. If we could put, there it is. Look at that. Son of a gun. It's right there.
Perfect.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you. So yes, here we don't print as many of these as we used to, but we make sure to keep our calendar up to date. We have everything. We feature the botanical garden, like I mentioned, with garden tours. We have different, what we call societies that we are a domicile to, from the Orchid Society to the Native Plant Society. They meet monthly. That's something I didn't mention. And those are groups of membership bodies that really honor or educate around plants and native, let's say, plants, trees, flowers. We also have in here some festival information. And the one thing that I haven't talked about is, for the first time, we're creating a dance sampler. Because of feedback from our
dance
samplers.
What is that?
So the dance sampler will introduce 2 local companies. It's Dimensions Dance Theater of Miami and the Zest Collective. And we've partnered with these 2 companies because their type of dance, which is neoclassical and almost like a classical modern dance, will allow us to showcase at the garden. Since we're not a regular proscenium theater, we have them doing 2 different concerts with a talkback, all because our patrons asked for, why aren't we presenting more dance? So this is an experiment for this year, and hopefully something will continue into the next seasons to bring 2 professional companies a year to us.
How happy are you?
Delighted.
Are you listening to this?
So much stuff. She knows. I get a little bit too excited, but honestly, generally, I think the mission of bringing the community together through our venue, which is a historic place. Remember, that's the first thing we are. We're a public garden. And then programming it's magical.
So when you and your team figures out who you want, and then you go pursue them and you make arrangements, sometimes a year in advance, right? And you call them a month ahead. You're going to be here, right? Okay, a couple of days. Yes, we're on the way. All right. The battery's not going to go dead. And they show up, and then you see the people there enjoying it. What's it like for you and your staff when you see that happen?
That's the ultimate satisfaction. It really is. Bringing it together is definitely a process, and it takes many of us to make it ultimately happen. And great partners like Rachel and the Pincer Company. But honestly, we can go home and rest and know that we did a good job that day.
Okay. I'm sure, Cristina, the people have helped you along your way. Some you might consider mentors, maybe some friends. I'd like you to talk to them as if they were sitting here. But I'd like you to look in this camera over here. Did we get the camera on there? And why don't you thank them, whether they're here or they passed?
Great. By name?
Yes.
Or just, okay. Well, I definitely want to thank Daniel Lewis, and he is here with us. I don't think he knows the little opportunity that he gave this high school student in 12th grade to start something that's still happening 30 years later at New World School of the Arts, gave his students a chance to lead, administer, and present a performance to the community that ultimately kind of, for me, spurred my interest in not only using my right side of my brain, but my left side of the brain. So I want to thank him dearly. And then I've had some amazing other mentors, a woman in Richmond, Virginia. She used to work with the Reynolds Company there, and she was my boss at Theater Virginia, which was a unique experience there because I really cut my teeth in fundraising. And she was very active in the Baptist church. I had not really been part of a parochial church fundraising, but the fact that she was able to mentor me to do that work for the arts was a wonderful gift and opportunity. And later on in Michigan, I had the great opportunity to take, let's say, my degree and apply it for the first time for an organization called Detroit Artist Market. So Maria Luisa Belmonte, who took a chance to hire somebody from Miami to come to Southeast Michigan, so a baby city to a very established city about to celebrate 300 years at that time, who let me lead their capital campaign, raise their membership profile, their visibility in the community so that they can purchase their new contemporary art gallery showcasing established and non-established artists. And then after that, believe it or not, a nun, Barbara Johnson at Marygrove College gave me a chance to be the grants officer at Marygrove College, which we used to be an all-female college, and then turned into a mixed college. But she really taught me the importance of writing narrative that helps people understand the value of what you're doing. And that I still take it today, right? The programming and all those types of things. And while I was there, I got to teach ballet and dance. So I was able to use a few sets of my skill sets, which was extremely rewarding. And then speed forward, coming back to South Florida, Robert McCammon hired me at History Miami before it was History Miami. It was called the Historical Museum of Southern Florida, and he allowed me to take the department I led, which was External Affairs, on the journey of helping to rebrand this 70-year-old organization to History Miami. And that was really important because we did a lot of community building and brought together past board members, the community, all around the idea that Miami can have a history, and allowed us to rewrite a mission, vision, value statement, and rename the organization History Miami. So I give that credit to these individuals. And then in banking, I have to name my banking mentor, Jay Pelham. Jay Pelham, thank you for letting me test my tools in the corporate setting. We were allowed to cultivate relationships with our customers, but also our internal employees, to retain them and grow their relationships through programming, curating events, and curating conversations that help people understand the responsibility and obligations that come with wealth. So that was fantastic. And then most recently at United Way, I will tell you there was too many mentors there because there's a lot of great community leaders involved. That at that time, I had the opportunity to wave the flag and support programs that help probably the most delicate members of the community, whether they were older adults or children or people living paycheck to paycheck, understanding even veterans leaving the military and coming into community civilian life. So that was very special. We got to lead census programs so people weren't afraid to share their count in their household. Or in that case, at the time, 2021, can you imagine this, 20? We had the pandemic that was about to be named, and we were able to come into households and educate them about the importance of healthcare and being safe, so to not spread disease. So, I mean, I've had a lot of interesting experiences, and so many of them have been stackable and fun. And I'm just in general grateful.
Just know that there's some little boy, some little girl looking at you that is learning what life is about. So I hope that they get the passion that you have.
Thank you.
Cristina Blanco, thank you very much for being here.
Thank
and
you.
we're going to look in this camera up here. And speaking about having an envelope around you,
Yes.
Grant and I subscribe to the Disney rule, which is when someone hugs you, don't stop until they do. Thank you for joining us. Have a good day. Bye.
Perfect.